I suck at that thing. Hey, everyone. Grant Cohn, Jack Hammer, the two of us fumbling around with technology. He's actually much better at it than I am. Hold on, let me put the little thing there. Boom. Okay, now we're looking good. So the 49ers are in a little bit of a dead period. They canceled minicamp. It would have been day one today. We're going to talk about Jack's takeaways from Kyle's last week because he hasn't talked about it yet, but not yet. We want to talk about something that's building discreetly, quietly. Trey Lance currently is in Atlanta with Mohamed Sanu and his quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, working. He works very hard. He works constantly. And the Niners are talking about Trey Lance, George Kittle, Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, and they're all saying stuff like, boy, they've installed the whole offense. It's really a quick learner. Seems like they're setting the stage for training camp. How do you interpret what they're saying right now?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, I listened to the podcast with Kyle Shanahan a couple days ago too. And when you listen to that, if you remember right after Trey was drafted, after Lance was drafted, he was talking about how there really wasn't even going to be a competition. They were just going to try to get him in and figure out what he could do. And that's really transitioned to the point where now he was talking about Lance actually competing for the job come training camp. So there's definitely been a shift over the last few weeks. And I think that's really exciting for 49er fans who are looking for an improvement behind center.
And I think that Kyle Shanahan handled this the right way. Let's give him credit. Instead of just creating the quarterback competition in OTAs, take the pressure off the 21-year-old kid and say, learn the offense first. And if you're ready, by training camp, then we'll have a quarterback competition. And it sounds like from what they're saying, he learned the offense. That although maybe the OTAs got shut down early and they weren't successful for everyone, they installed the entire offense for Trey Lance, and now he's actually in a position where he can compete starting day one of training camp.
Yeah, and that makes sense when you hear about when they talk about Trey Lance, they all talk about how smart he is and how bright he is. And so it makes sense that he's picking up this offense, maybe quicker than some other guys that have been around the 49ers organization for the last 4 years and things. Because what they're doing on the field once the play starts really isn't any more difficult than anywhere else that you watch in the NFL. It's all the terminology and he's like, I heard you on Friday and that's a point that I understand where it's like it's football, but it's like trying to learn French when you've been speaking English your entire life, and it's really hard, and you've got to have that ability to absorb that information, and it just seems like he has that ability and he's been able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. They say younger people are better at learning foreign languages than older people too. So maybe he can do it without the accent too. I always had the accent. I wasn't very good at it. What else would I want to say about Trey Lance? No, I think this is really good news. It seems to me that he's ahead of schedule, and that early on in the offseason, the Niners were talking about Jimmy. They're like, boy, he looks better than ever. They don't seem to be talking about Jimmy as much anymore. Kittle, the coaches, it's like, Jimmy looks great, but he still can't move. He still doesn't throw the ball down the field. I mean, how much is he really going to change from what he's 29 years old? Trey seems to be the one that they're all very excited to talk about, and it's almost like he's exceeding expectations. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, and that seems to make sense because there's not a whole lot that we're going to. Garoppolo isn't all of a sudden going to be able to come out and run around the field like he's never been that guy. He was a little bit in 2017, but ever since he hurt his knee, he's never been that guy. And we know that he isn't going to work the outside of the field, down the field very much. So we know those routes are going to be taken away. And now you've got a guy who can handle all of that in Trey Lance, and he's opening up so much of the offense for them. I think it's really, I can understand them getting excited, especially if I'm George Kittle, because I'm going to be catching the ball down the field. I'm going to be making big plays. And all of a sudden, instead of being this argument for who the best tight end is, I might be the guy that they just say is because I have a better quarterback throwing me the ball.
Right, because Kittle, it seems to me that there's so much more you could do with him. He's so great after the catch, but he's also great down the field. Imagine if he had a quarterback who could get it to him down the field. He's really good at that. He's also pretty good. I think he'd be good in the red zone, too. He never gets the ball in tight windows. One of the things Kittle said about him, Trey Lance, is that he throws the ball in the tight windows, and I've seen it. I mean, Jack is a cannon. I mean, he's right there with Colin. He's a freaking cannon. The ball explodes out of his hand. I could see why they're all very excited.
Yeah, you can see that when he throws the ball, just the way that jumps out of it, and you saw that on film. As you watched through the more film you watched, you saw that coming out, and how hard he can throw the ball, and on target he can throw it when he needs to.
So all I want to say
Great.
before we move on is I'm really excited. I think there's going to be a legit quarterback competition in training camp for the first time since I've been covering the team. I mean, a full training camp of two guys splitting reps with the first team. I think that's what it's going to be. And I think Trey Lance could win that competition, Jack. If they open it up to him like that, I think he could do it.
I think so too. I think it's going to be if they're even close to each other. I think you've got to give it to the rookie and just let him go and just kind of know that you're going to spoon feed the offense a little bit at the beginning, but that you'll be able to still have success. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really exciting to watch it play out.
So that's what the first thing on my mind today is. It seems like the Niners are kind of not broadcasting it, but quietly planting the seeds in the 49er fans' minds that expect a real competition in camp. Trey Lance cleared the hurdles he needed to. So good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. And they kind of did that. Shanahan's done a really good job of that throughout the whole off season of kind of planting little seeds with the different things. Even did it in the lead up to the draft as far as the quarterback type that he was looking for and things like that. And some of us just didn't pay. I know myself, I didn't play. I paid attention to it, but I had my favorite, so that's why I was a little bit on that.
Well, I think it's a good transition to a topic. Let's jump to it. The national media will not let the Mac Jones thing go. Certain people more than others, Mike Florio in particular, went on a whole rant yesterday on his website about how the Niners are messing stuff up and how they're lying, basically. Whatever, man. I mean, maybe they did lie. Who cares anymore? They drafted who they drafted. That's old news. But people really freaking care. What do you think of this? Why?
Yeah, I don't really understand it. It's to me, I don't really get caught up. It doesn't frustrate me. Because the way that I look at it is the Niners made the decision that they made. They decided to go with Trey Lance over Mac Jones. Whatever. Cool. That's where they are. We're going forward now. And I don't understand why they feel the need to keep bringing this topic up and writing about it from, 3,000 miles away or wherever they are, and not really, I don't think really totally get everything that's going into it. And even if Mac Jones was the guy originally, it's at this point, it's really not a big deal. And it's the national media hyping it up all the time. And then also the reactions, it just constantly gets reactions from 49er fans that I don't understand why we're reacting to it either.
Well, yeah, that's bizarre too. But I want to focus on the national media people because they matter more. Sorry. But what I want to say is it's very interesting to see these guys not let it go. Now, it's mostly Florio at this point, but that's his brand.
Mostly.
It's the kind of, and I respect him what he does. I do a lot of the same stuff, but I'm talking about Adam Schefter, Mike Silver, Matt Mayoko. Those were the three guys who basically reported it was going to be Mac Jones and got burned. And those guys aren't in the business of guessing. They don't need to guess. They're at the top of their profession. They have the best sources. So for them to get it wrong means that they were probably hearing something incorrect. And I think that's why Florio is so upset, is because he has good sources too. And he feels like he was led astray or that he knows the real story and the Niners are just lying. And I think they feel like they got shown up. Now, Florio, Silver, and Schefter and Mayoko aren't complaining publicly, but I wonder if they now have a different perception of Kyle, and if Kyle just essentially burned his big media contacts for no reason. I wonder.
That could be the case. That's why we're seeing all these, everything that's starting to break out of the 49ers coming out of a different source now. It's come, out of I can't remember his name. The one who did he's
Garofalo. It's Pelissero. A lot of Garofalo and Pelissero right now. Yeah.
And those are the East Coast guys, and maybe that's part of what's happened is maybe they just don't trust what they're hearing as much, and so they're holding off.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Shanahan made a point to basically embarrass a bunch of very respected reporters. I'm not sure what he gained from it, and I wonder what the ramifications will be because Schefter's not going to go on Twitter and complain. It's just going to be buried forever. But who knows what he's going to do behind closed doors? All I know is I would want Schefter on my side. I want that guy on my side. Same with Mike Silver. Those guys.
Right, and God, it doesn't make any sense to burn Silver or Schefter at all, or even Matt Mayoko, because all those guys are guys that are usually really team friendly, and they're usually going to do everything they can to give you the benefit of the doubt, and they're going to get their information out, right? But at the same time, they kind of bend it to the narrative that you're looking to spin.
My best guess here, and I like to this is a conspiracy theory guess. I don't know. This is it's not even alleged. I'm guessing. But all these people with the best sources got it wrong. Who are they talking to? I'm guessing they were talking to the head coach's dad, which is why they felt so strongly that it was going to go a certain direction. But you know what? The head coach's dad doesn't work for this team. And while he may have felt that he knew, ultimately he didn't. So yeah. I kind of feel like that's what happened. Like Mike got Kyle in trouble, but I don't know. I'm just guessing. It would make sense. I mean, Schefter wrote the dude's biography. I'm just saying that. Shanahan's.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And as you know, some of those early reports were that people with knowledge that we used to work with the 49ers organization have said that it's going to be Mac Jones and those kind of things. So you know, there's lots of things that could lead to Mike Shanahan as being the where the source was coming from.
Right. So I think the reason this isn't going away is because a lot of very powerful national media people got burned and they feel unnecessarily. Like, man, I trusted you. I had your back. Why did you do this to me? So it'll be interesting to see if Kyle Shanahan opens himself up to something in the future, if he won't have the same type of national media support that he's had for the past 5 years. I mean, the national media adores him.
Mm-hmm. What happens if they start losing, and instead of the, kind of the hype that he's always had, maybe they start to change.
Yeah, maybe it's just tough love after that. It'll be interesting, but I think it's a very interesting topic. All right, let's move back to the Niners. Richie James Jr., kind of in that boat with Ross Dwelley of people that always make plays when given the opportunity. They just don't get many opportunities. And it seems like he should be next in line to be the number 3 receiver, but he's competing with Jawan Jennings and Mohamed Sanu. Do you think that Richie James is being given a fair opportunity to win the number 3 job?
I'm not sure if I would say that he's not being given a fair opportunity. It's maybe I'm going to kind of go in circles here with my answer, but I think that there's something, I don't know what it is about Kyle Shanahan where he doesn't like Richie James or feel like Richie James can handle the job. Right. Because every time he does get put into the game and is given the opportunities, he's producing. And it's really odd that he's constantly kind of like the 4th or 5th man on the totem pole who doesn't get a chance until somebody else fails or somebody else gets hurt, and then they bring him in and then he produces. And I really don't understand it at all, because he's a guy, when you look at his numbers from last year, his numbers are better than Deebo Samuel in a lot of ways when it comes to being a wide receiver. I mean, Deebo Samuel's great with the ball in his hands, but his average yard per target last year route was, I think, 2.1 yards or something like that compared to Richie James. And James is, over 17 yards per reception. And when you look at his target numbers, he's targeted at, under 5 yards and, between 5 to 20 and over 20, whereas Deebo Samuel doesn't have a single target last year over 20 yards. Oof. And 30 something of his 44 targets were under 5 yards.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's going on here is Kyle Shanahan has a very specific, vision for what Richie James does in his offense, and it may be too limited. Like, I think he feels that he can't beat the press on the outside. So he's trying to get him, in the slot in bunch sets where he gets free releases. But at the same time, I don't think he really wants him doing much work over the middle in the box. I think he wants him outside the numbers and deep. So I think he's sort of limiting Richie James Jr. maybe more than he should be limited.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it. I think there's some, and it's, maybe Kyle being stubborn in a way, because he has his type, and Richie James really isn't his type of number 3 receiver, and so because of that, he's not getting the fair shake that he deserves.
I think they probably drafted him to be a returner. He's a better receiver than a returner, but I think the way I think of him is like Taylor Gabriel, that role in Shanahan's offense from 5 years ago. I mean, a guy that isn't necessarily your possession receiver on third down, isn't a classic slot receiver in that sense, but as an outside receiver or a deep threat in 3 receiver sets on first down and a play action attack, I mean, he's a handful. If he's the guy that defense is least concerned about, and if they lose track of him for 1 second, it's an 80-yard touchdown. I don't see why you wouldn't get him on the field more. Yeah,
that Taylor Gabriel, that's a really good call, because that's actually a name that I was thinking of
Yeah.
For that, because he had a very strong season with Kyle Shanahan in 2015 and 16. And so you think that he'd be able to find some ways to get James the ball more often on a regular basis.
Now, let me give Kyle Shanahan some credit, because in the sense that we say he knows, or he's too concerned with Richie James' limitations, he's very aware of his players' limitations. And I think a lot of the offense is built with Jimmy Garoppolo's limitations in mind. They don't throw down the field at all. And Richie James Jr. is such a downfield threat. Maybe when Trey Lance takes over, we'll see more Richie James, because they're a good matchup. They're a good pairing.
Yeah, that could be the case, and that could be part of why when James was given the chance to play this year, he did, because he wasn't playing with Jimmy Garoppolo. He was primarily playing with Nick Mullins, who, whatever you want to say about Mullins and the issues that he had, he was definitely somebody that pushed the ball down the field more often.
No doubt, which is probably what led to some of the interceptions, but that's what Nick Mullins does. He pushes the ball down the field. He used the players differently. You look at Brandon Ayuk's numbers. A lot of that was with Nick Mullins. I wonder what Ayuk's going to look like with Jimmy Garoppolo, because there's only so much you can do within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I really think that's Brandon Ayuk is a guy who really needs to have Jimmy Garoppolo not win this job, because he needs to have that.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
He needs
from
to have
that
that
perspective.
ability to get downfield.
From that perspective, a lot of players in this offense should be rooting for Trey to win this job.
Yeah, because it's one thing to have those downfield shots that are shot plays, right, where they're designed and the quarterback's going there. It's another thing to have those just kind of organically come out of the play, and that's what they really have missed with Garoppolo.
Keneal Mason says maybe it's size. Kyle might want that third wide receiver to be a big possession red zone threat. I think that's probably what it is. He's got these types. Mm-hmm. He wants Sanu, Kendrick Bourne, young Sanu, and he's hoping Juwan Jennings will be that player. But on first and second down, what's Juwan Jennings going to do for you? I'd rather have Richie James on the field.
I agree. And that's kind of what we were talking about. It's the type, and he's looking for the big guy. That's also, I think, part of what draws them to Jalen Hurd, if Jalen Hurd's healthy.
Right.
And if Jalen Hurd's healthy, I think this discussion changes a little bit, because he does bring so much more to the table of possibilities if he's healthy. But
absolutely. So I think a realistic expectation for Richie James is to probably platoon with whoever that big slot receiver is, whether it's Hurd, Jennings. On first and second down, James should be on the field. On third down in the red zone, it would make sense to take out the 5'9" receiver and put in someone like 6'3" Juwan Jennings. I see that, but they're probably going to platoon. I would hope they better. I would like to see more playing time for Dwelly and Richie James this year. I think we can make it happen.
Yeah, those two guys definitely. All those targets that went to the other tight end last year need to definitely go to somebody else. Because, I'd like to see Dwelly get at least half of those, as a bump up, because he deserves it.
Jordan Reed got a bunch of targets last year for a guy who didn't do much, so there's going to be a lot of targets distributed. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This was last week, but I haven't talked to you since then. Kyle Shanahan did a lot of stuff the last 7-8 days. What do you think of what he did?
Yeah, I think Chris wrote a really good article today on this, and it really hit on a lot of these points. And it's just the lack of accountability throughout the 49ers organization to really take accountability for. And you can talk about it from the injury of the portion, all kinds of different angles. You've got the injuries are one of them. It's just kind of like this. It is what it is mentality, and that just doesn't really go anywhere. And you can also take that into post-game press conferences when they lose games, and he's like, well, it's not really my, the quarterback didn't throw the ball where he was supposed to. The tackle didn't block it like it was supposed to. And then you look at the film, and it's like, I understand that, but that's just a bad play call in this situation. You shouldn't have been doing that anyway. This situation doesn't call for you to do be meant to say running this play. So, for me, I'm frustrated by the fact that they're not doing team activities this week, even if it's not on the field. They should have guys. There's no reason for Trey Lance to be in Atlanta right now working with Mohamed Sanu out there. He should be in Santa Clara working with Kyle Shanahan and Rich Scangarello, doing stuff on the field with them, in the film room with them, looking at film, and those kind of things. That's
agreed.
So
missed opportunity.
That's really it's missed opportunities. If I was Kyle Shanahan, I would not give up an opportunity to work with my players. So that's part of why it's odd that it's odd that he tried to come out and act like, well, I was going to not do minicamp to begin with anyway, because I felt like we got everything in.
Yep. And the other thing with Kyle, I mean, the way he never takes the hit for his players, like, there's a little bit of feedback. Hold on, let me mute you real quick. Okay. He never takes a hit for his players like McVay does. It's my fault. Even if it isn't, you say it's my fault. And I was thinking like Ferris Bueller. That's one of my favorite movies. It's one of your favorite movies too. You always use the quote, if you don't look, life moves pretty fast. If you don't slow down, you might miss it. Okay. So Ferris Bueller is a coming of age movie. And the climax of the movie is when Cameron destroys the Ferrari and it goes out the window. Okay. To this moment in the movie, Ferris Bueller's been the leader. Cameron has been a whiny little follower. And Ferris Bueller has had to drag him through life to get him out of the bedroom to experience things. And that's a great function for Ferris Bueller that he does for his friend. But at the final moment, Cameron grows up. He knocks the Ferrari out the window, and Ferris steps up and says, "You don't want this, man. I'm going to take the hit. You don't want this. I'll tell your dad. It was me. I forced you. You didn't want to do this. It was all my fault." And Cameron says, "No. I want this. I got to stand up. I want to be a man. I got to be a man. I got to stand up to my dad." And that's what the whole scene, the whole movie was about. It's growing up, being a leader, taking accountability for the sake of it, for the sake of growing up. And I feel like Kyle could learn from that too. Dude, just take the hit, man. Everyone on your team will respect it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's not like he needs to feel like he's going to be diminished in any way if he admits every once in a while that he makes mistakes. I think people would really appreciate it. I think I'd have a little bit more respect for him if every after a loss, if he came out and instead of throwing the players under the bus all the time, brought up the things that he wished he'd done differently. Because as a head coach, there's not a game that you lose that you walk out and you think, well, nothing of this lays on me. At least I've never been in that situation.
I mean, if at the end of Ferris Bueller, Cameron had walked to his dad and be like, "Dad, it's all Ferris Bueller's fault. I didn't tell him to do this. He came over. He insisted." I mean, you would hate Cameron and you think this guy is a weasel. He wasn't worthy of Ferris Bueller's friendship. I hope bad things happen to Cameron, but he didn't do that. That's why when Kyle just weasels out and is like, "Man, I didn't have anything to do with this. This was freak. This was that. This was that." It's like, not impressive, man. You missed an opportunity to be Cameron, to be Ferris Bueller. Do it, man. Come on. Come on.
Yeah. Being able to admit to your mistakes is a strength that I don't think some people really value as much as they should, because that's where you're growing from. You grow so much through your mistakes compared to just sailing through life making all the right decisions.
Yeah, but again, in Ferris Bueller, it was very much Ferris's mistakes, and Cameron was just passive. And what he needed to do at the end was take the hit. He needed to stand up and not blame Ferris and say, "This is Dad, and punish me, Dad. Punish me," even though it wasn't all his fault. And Ferris knew he needed to do that. It was a coming of age moment for him. It would be a coming of age moment of Kyle to say the same thing, even if he felt deep down inside it wasn't his fault. Because that's the big distinction between him and Sean McVay. McVay lost the Super Bowl and went on for 10 minutes in the post-game press conference about why it was his fault. Kyle couldn't do that.
That's why Sean McVay's worst season's been 9-7, and his team continues to take risks and do things outside the box that nobody seems to think is going to work out, and it continues to work out year after year for him.
So what we're saying, Kyle, is watch Ferris Bueller again and think about the scene with the Ferrari at the end, because I think you can learn a lot from it. I think you learn a lot. I mean, Ferris didn't think that Cameron had it in him. I didn't think he did either, but he rose up. He rose up. Yeah, in the span of about 90 minutes, he went very far.
Yes, definitely, for sure.
I love that movie, man. I'm sure all the people here are like 22 years old being like, "What the hell are they talking about?"
They need to find it and watch it this week.
It's your
homework before next Tuesday.
Absolutely. Okay, this is a little scheme stuff. We don't know how the Niners are going to change their defense, but they said they will, and they have some versatility with their safeties. The past couple of years, Robert Saleh was experimenting with some 3 safety lineups. I mean, when he had Tartan Ward, he would sometimes put Marcel Harris at linebacker and kind of use like a big nickel alignment with 3 safeties and 2 corners and 2 linebackers. Do you think that would be something that DeMeco Ryans would be smart to expand on?
I think so, because I think their safety depth is better than their third linebacker depth. And you and I have had this discussion before about like Talanoa Hufanga. That would be a good role for him if they're going to get him onto the field. That might be even a good role for Tony Jefferson, because everything I've heard about Tony Jefferson is that he's better in the box. He's a better box safety. So that might be a situation there. And that all comes back to if you've got to have both Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt healthy, because they can rotate between each other, because we've seen Tartt be able to play, single high safety. And we know that Jimmy Ward can do that. We've also been able to see Jimmy Ward come up and play at the line of scrimmage and just be an animal as a slot cover guy playing in that kind of role as well. So if they do that, I think it would be really beneficial for the team. And it's something that I've heard a lot about. I just, in doing some film study on it for Javon Kinlaw, I ran across the fact that they did that almost entirely throughout the New Orleans Saints game last year. So it's very interesting. I don't know if that was just because of the scheme that they were going against, or if because they were trying to start making some changes with their approach.
It makes sense to me. I've always felt that Tartt's best position is linebacker. Now, I wouldn't want to play him at linebacker on first and second down against the run, but on third down, that's how Eric Mangini used him his rookie year. And I always thought it was the right way to use Tartt. He was great as a man-to-man coverage linebacker on third down. I think that's the best thing he does. He's really good at it. And then with Jimmy Ward, I think his best position is strong safety, not on first and second down, again, because Tartt and Ward, their bodies break down. So you don't want to put him in these positions all the time. But on third down, I want Ward near the line of scrimmage. I want him maybe in coverage, maybe blitzing, being a playmaker. Just hanging back in the post isn't necessarily the best way to use him, although it'll keep him healthy. So on third down, bring those guys into more attacking positions, coverage positions, blitzing positions, and have someone else covering, being the eraser. I like that. It always made sense to me.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing to watch, because I didn't realize it as the season was going on last year that they were doing it as often as they were. And, it might have to do with the fact that the Saints don't have a very strong running game, so maybe that's why they weren't playing linebacker in the box as much. So when they're playing against those teams, that they can do it, get away with it more than they would be, say, against Seattle, where they're going to come in and kind of pound at you a little bit more.
Now, I wonder if the fact that the new defensive coordinator is a linebackers coach, if that means he'd be a little more reluctant to take linebackers off the field and use big nickel, big dime, 6 DBs, 1 linebacker. I don't know. I mean, it'd be cool, but sometimes, I don't know, sometimes position coaches are, have to their positions. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, they're not impartial to their linebackers, right? So
right.
I would say that, that's a possibility that happens, but I think that, Ryan's seems to be a pretty smart guy, so I think he's going to do whatever it takes to be successful. So I don't think you see him as a guy that's going to play favorites for his position group.
Here's an interesting thought, though, from Chris. He says, being a former linebacker, I think Ryans is going to draw up a ton of plays utilizing the linebackers in the blitz game. That's very interesting. Could be.
Mm-hmm.
The sacks, the stats.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense, because if it takes Bosa a little bit of time to come back, the pass rush might not be there, so they're going to try to generate some additional pressure with the blitz, and that could be part of why we saw them go into the draft and go after more cornerbacks that are more man type of corners, because they plan to be getting after guys more often and using the blitz. And if you're going to blitz most often, you're going to use your linebackers as the blitzers. You're not going to really use your corners. Every once in a while, you use the safety, but maybe it's going to be more of a situation where it's going to be a linebacker, or it's going to be that third safety that's in the box. It's going to be your blitzer.
Salah's trademark signature was the nickel blitz. He loved the nickel blitz. I feel like it was his secret weapon. Don't know what D'Amico Ryan's going to do. He might want to do something else. I mean, I remember Vic Fangio, who was a longtime linebacker coach like Ryan's, like Salah. He liked to blitz Bowman and Willis. And Bowman in particular was really freaking good at it. He had explosion, he had the spin move, and he would win. So I wonder if maybe we'll see a little bit more of that from Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner.
Mm-hmm. And of those two, who would you say is the better blitzer?
Well, we've seen Warner do more. I mean, Warner's good at it, but Dre Greenlaw is very fast. He hits very hard. I think he's got potential, Jack.
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, no, I think so too. I think he has the potential. I think both those guys are very good linebackers. I really like what Dre Greenlaw brings to the table. So
I got a thought. Fred Warner's better at everything than Dre Greenlaw. But Fred Warner is so great in coverage, and Greenlaw is not particularly great in coverage on passing plays. If he's on the field, blitz his ass.
Yeah, that would make more sense, right? You'd rather not give up your best cover guy to get after the quarterback if you could. So you'd want to maybe bring him and allow your other linebacker to be the guy that's chasing down the back or a tight end out of the backfield.
We just figured it out. Dre Greenlaw, 10 sacks this year. We got it. Thank you, Chris. 10 sacks, Dre Greenlaw. There it is.
There you go. D'Amico, don't worry. We're here for you.
And D'Amico can say, I developed him, I scouted him, I unleashed him, and that's my creation. Maybe that's his K'Wan Williams. I think Dre, be ready, Dre. Be ready, Dre. I don't think so. Good job. Good job, Chris. I'm out of topics for today, man. I don't know. I wanted to have a longer show, but I feel like this was a good one. I'm sorry I don't have more. It's dry right now. There was supposed to be practice today. Gosh darn it.
Yeah, it is a little bit dry. That's why it's interesting to kind of try to get through this time of the year with and still be producing content on a regular basis. So I think that's why you're starting to see a lot of discussions about stuff in the past. So like what's a game to you that really still haunts you to this day and things like that. So
or the Mac Jones discussion. It's like it's only going to pop up when people have nothing to talk about. No one's gotten hurt this week. No one's gotten arrested. Thank goodness. That's the one thing you can look forward to with the Kyle Shanahan Niners. You don't have to worry about that as much anymore. But the Niners, don't go on vacation if you're covering the team. Just stay home because
Yeah, but the Mac Jones thing is funny to me, just in so many different ways. And I understand why people didn't like him or didn't want him to come to the 49ers, whatever. But you even had Kyle Shanahan in his on that podcast that he did talking about how Jones is better than people. He didn't understand the hate that he was getting, and even. You're still seeing it now to this day. You still have 49er fans who are wanting to bring stuff up around Mac Jones. And, last weekend, the report was that he was struggling in camp and behind the Cam Newton and so on, right? And you saw some folks kind of jump on that narrative. And then, lo and behold, they go into practice this week, and it's a little rainy, and all of a sudden, Mac Jones is hitting everything under the sun, and Cam Newton can't hit the broadside of a barn, and all of a sudden it's crickets on that whole thing.
I do think that there's something about Mac Jones. You're allowed to make fun of Mac Jones. You're allowed to make fun of Mac Jones. There's no one saying you can't. It's open season. But if you try to say something slick about Justin Fields or Trey Lance, there's a whole avalanche of people telling to keep you in check. So you don't do it. But Mac Jones is fair season, open season, and you want to make fun of someone, so Mac Jones gets all of it. All of it. It's almost a little bit rough. I feel bad. I feel like Daniel Jones was kind of the same way a couple of years ago. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Daniel Jones, was an easy target.
Yeah, for sure. And even Chardall, he even came out and said that Mac Jones is fat. So, he's all there. But
hold on, I want to say something real quick. I'm not 100% certain that that's the real Chardall.
I'm not either.
Chardall, if you're out there, are you Chardall 49ers on Twitter? Because I'm not certain. I'm gonna find out. He's gonna call in on Saturday, and we're gonna find out whether it's Chardall or someone trying to be Chardall for clout, which is terrible. But it also shows you how freaking popular Chardall is. That someone would take the opportunity to pretend to be him. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I did see that be questioned today, and I could understand some of it because some of the stuff doesn't really necessarily seem like things that he'd be saying. But
yeah, I'm open-minded, but I'm also skeptical. Let me say real quick, if you want to subscribe to my Twitch, you can do so for free. You go to Amazon Prime Gaming, log in with your Amazon account, click on Activate Prime Gaming, go to my Twitch, twitch.tv/RealGrantCohn, subscribe. There's a free option once you've activated your Prime Gaming. And if you do that, you get a complimentary invitation to my VIP Discord, which Jack Hammer has been known to make a cameo in every once in a while. Vish, Jesse, all the heavy hitters. You can bump elbows, rub elbows, metaphorically speaking, with the movers and shakers of the industry. Also, Jack has a Discord as well that his son set up for him, so you can check.
Yeah, that's why when you say that I'm smart with technology or better than technology, no, I'm not better than technology. I just got a 17-year-old that knows all this stuff way better than I do.
Wow, he's 17 now. I've known you a long time. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
That's one of the funny things, that I don't think people really know a lot about, is that you and I have debated and back and forth. We're going on 10 years now from when you were started at the Press Democrat. And
That's
everything.
true. 10 years. And the thing about it is, when you debate in comment sections, kind of like Twitter, it's not nice. Jack and I have said really mean things to each other throughout the years, been mad at each other, but we work together now, and I love Jack. Jack's a great guy. So we have a history, man. So like probably 20 people in the world know how mad Jack and I have gotten at each other at times.
Oh yeah, no, shoot, there was times on because Grant used to be able to put you on timeout over at the.
I would put Jack on timeout.
And I got kicked a couple of times.
I was so petty.
I think we both were, and I'll admit I was a jerk a couple of times, and it just goes back and forth, but it's all good. It's fun because then you start to talk, and you and I had met a couple of times outside of the blog and stuff, so we knew each other a little bit, so that's good.
So now you know about the contentious past between me and Jack Hammer. Okay, guys, I'm gonna finish up. Jack, next time I'll have more topics, I promise. But I still blame Kyle Shanahan for not. We should have practice today. That's on you, Kyle. It's on you.
Yeah, we should. We should have something to be talking about besides why we're not having practice.
One day we'll find out what happened. But until then, Jack, good show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone.